Hi, my name is Tashi, and you're watching Beauty in the Bar. Once you've got all the elements of your application together, you've taken your LSAT, you've written your personal statement, you've begged for your letters of recommendation, you have to decide where you're actually sending these applications to schools. Obviously, this is a decision process that can be happening throughout the time that you are putting together your application, and you can even gear certain portions of your application more or less to certain schools. But eventually you are going to have to go ahead and start submitting. So I would recommend that you apply to 5 to 10 schools. You do not need to apply to every law school in the country, every law school in the world. You will waste your time, but mostly you will waste your money on application fees. This is going to give you a good chance of getting into a solid school. Basically, if your LSAT score and GPA are about average for a school, that's going to be a school you should consider solid. If they're higher, that's going to be a school you should consider to be a safety school. And if they're a little below, that should be considered a reach school. You can always apply to more schools, but this is about the number that I would recommend. And if you're still not getting into certain schools that you consider safeties or solid schools, that might be a sign that you should reevaluate your application and sort of what's going on, how you're being perceived, and maybe even apply another year when you are able to go back and restudy for your LSAT, strengthen up your personal statement, strengthen up your relationships to get the right letters of recommendation, and really just have a stronger application. People hate the idea of waiting to apply, of waiting to start, but this is a degree that you likely are going to pay a good chunk of money for, and it's something that's going to go with you for the rest of your life. So waiting that extra year in the grand scheme of things is not going to be as huge a deal or deal breaker as you think that it is. Now, there are certain things that you should consider when you are deciding which schools to apply to and deciding how to sort of rank them by preference for yourself. These factors are going to be different for every person. This is a very personal decision, and different factors are going to matter more to different people than others. Some things you might want to consider are the location of the school. That can be very important depending on how close or far you want to be away from your family, what kind of support system you might have in a particular city, what the legal market looks like in a particular city, even what the weather is like can make a big difference in your performance in law school and the time that you have there. It is 3 years of your life, and you don't need it to be a rip-roaring great time, but you don't want to be miserable, so location can matter a lot. The types of professors they have there could matter. If there's a particular professor that you really want to study with and you really think is going to help you become a great lawyer, or you really admire, that might be something to consider. If you want to take a clinic and there's a particular clinic you're super interested in that a school has that's very strong, that might be another consideration. You want to look at the outcomes, the job outcomes for students that go to the school. How many students are employed and how many students are employed with jobs that require a JD? Are they actually using their law degree that they got from that school? Ranking is something to consider. Unfortunately, the legal field can be very elitist, and a U.S. News and World Report ranking is sort of the gold standard of gauging graduates of a particular school. This is not to say that everyone's going to just look at that alone, but that is something you're going to want to consider when you are thinking about schools, because that definitely can affect job outcomes and job opportunities. Something else to consider might be the alumni network. If a school has a very strong alumni network or fosters a lot of school spirit in their students, that can be really helpful, because alumni will be more willing to help you, especially if you plan to stay in the same area or in areas where students from your law school typically go to live out their professional careers. When it comes to the elitism that I mentioned, and it comes to job outcomes, your best bet is going to go with the school that's ranked as high as possible on U.S. News and World Report. That's not going to be everything, but it is a big factor, I think, in a lot of people's decision making, and a big factor in some employers' decision making processes. If you don't feel that you're a good candidate for a very high ranked school in general, it can be great to go to a school that's very high ranked in a particular area that you be willing to live and work in. I think employers typically look to top law schools, and then they look to top regional schools. For instance, if you're in Los Angeles, it's going to be great if you have a degree from Harvard, but it's also going to look great if you have a degree from UCLA, from USC, from other similar law schools in the area that have really strong reputations and alumni networks in this area. Now, those law schools are still pretty highly ranked, but you can go ahead and look at, law firms, look at where they are getting their lawyers from, essentially. If you look at the Los Angeles office of a lot of top law firms and a lot of even public defenders' offices in this area, you're going to see a lot of USC. You're always going to see a lot of UCLA. You're going to see Loyola Los Angeles, along with other top law schools from around the country. So that is something to consider. One thing that I would not consider very highly and would take with a grain of salt is rankings in a particular legal area. So for instance, a school might be listed as a top ranked school for environmental law. That's great, and it's great that they have an amazing program for that. And it is something to consider, but you should not go to a school that is top ranked in an area that you think you want to practice in over a school that is ranked higher, especially if it's ranked significantly higher. The reason for that is because schools tend to generalize a lot more. Law schools tend to generalize a lot more than people imagine they do. You're not majoring the way that you are in a college. Another reason is that people really don't know about those rankings. Employers are not going to know that X law school has the top, program for environmental law. And so if I'm hiring an environmental lawyer, then that's what I need. They're just going to be looking at the overall law school ranking. And finally, you never know what you're going to come out doing from law school. A lot of people go into law school thinking that they want to practice one type of law and imagining themselves in one particular role, and then come out doing something completely different, or find something that they like better, or end up taking a different path. And you don't want to go to a law school and choose specifically just for one particular type of law, only to find out that you're interested in something else. So I would, definitely focus on overall rankings more so than rankings in a particular subject area. Another thing that you might consider if you are someone who, has been in the working field in the area of business, or has been, out there in the area of public policy, is dual degree programs. Some schools make it easier than others to get a dual degree. For instance, Yale has a JD MBA program that's 3 years. It doesn't require additional summers in order to complete. And a lot of the law students that apply, a majority of the law school students that apply, do get into the JD MBA program. So that's a great program to consider if you know that you also would benefit from or like to have an MBA. Harvard, for instance, has the Harvard Kennedy School that a lot of people who are interested in public policy want to have access to. University of Pennsylvania has the Wharton School of Business, a very top business school combined with, a very highly ranked law school. So that is another thing to consider as you're making your decision-making process. That's about all I've got for considering where you should apply to law school. Again, it's a very personal decision, and it's gonna depend on what you want to do, where you want to be, and what your priorities are. These are not the only decision-making factors. These are just some that I came up with, but people decide to go to different law schools for all kinds of different reasons, and all of their reasons are valid. It's your education and it's your life, and you should take it into your own hands and really choose schools carefully based on what you think is going to make you happy and help you to get the career that you want for yourself. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them below in the comments, and let me know, if you are in the admissions process, what are your dream schools? What are some of the factors that you're considering? And if you found this video helpful, please go ahead and like, share, subscribe. It really helps me out to build my channel and to get this information out to as many people as possible. That's all I have for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.